You spent countless hours in the garage with your dad. Now investing in that old car and working on it with your son reminds you of him. And his legacy lives on. Fund your passion with a low-interest home equity line of credit from Bank of Blue Valley.
Hi, Will. How are you?
Aaron, I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm so much nicer when I co-host with you versus Scott.
Why do you think that is?
Because he's so cheesy. I feel like it's how he starts it off. He always has like things in front of his face or like dinosaurs. I think it just sets the tone for me to do it to him.
It does. You have to be on your toes with Scott. There's no doubt about it. And I'm hopefully he's not in the airport stuck somewhere like he was last time. Everything okay?
Yeah, he's actually he had a speaking event at KU business department that they moved the time on him. So
all right. Well, hey, you can't argue with that.
I think you and I can handle it. I taught him everything he knows.
We'll do our best.
How have you been?
I've been doing great. We've been having a lot of fun here at Bank of Blue Valley. It's been a great, few months where we've been very fortunate to get some very talented bankers throughout Kansas City to join us, and interest just continues to be there. So it's in a time where the market is unusual and difficult to say the least. We're doing really well. So having a lot of fun.
I have one quick question and then we will bring our guest up. But I've always I think as I get older, I get more interested in this stuff. You've been in banking for quite a while, right?
I have, yes.
Do you prepare as a banker like other industries do? Do you prepare for election years? Do things change in banking during election years, like in some industries?
I think what you do during election years is you keep an eye on how policies can impact either the products of your customer or the inputs that your customer needs to make their product. So, tax implications can come into play, things like that allow us to, or we have to come in and kind of help be an advisor and think through what could be under certain situations.
Oh, that makes sense. Sense. I was thinking about that because in my industry, man, marketing, there's a lot of money in politics and marketing, right?
I would think that it's a hot time for your industry.
Yeah, we have it. It is more than ever. So, all right, awesome. Well, we have an insane guest on today. I'm super excited. I've heard you guys are buddies.
Well, I would hope you would think that way of me. Yes.
Yes, Stacey. He was telling me you're best friends and he made you a friendship bracelet.
Yeah. Well, those seem to be working around town.
I heard that there's a whole thing with friendship bracelets right now. So,
yeah.
Okay, well, let's start to bring him in because this is a short show today. So I want to make sure we get all the stuff. Hey, make sure over here in the comments, you follow Paul's lead. Tell us where you're watching on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube. This is Paul. Paul's hilarious. So he's watching on MySpace. I don't think you can still stream to MySpace. And then let us know, like, if you have any questions for Tom. We're so lucky that he's on here. But if you guys have questions, put those in the comments too, so we can get to them. Okay, let's play the cheesy music that you guys love. All right. Today, our guest is the one, the only, Tom Collins.
What's up, guys?
Hello, sir.
Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. So nice to be on here without Scott.
I know, right? Isn't this nice? Okay, I will ask this question, then Will, you can ask, and we'll just ping pong. Of course, my dog decides to lose it. Who are you? What do you do? And how do you get to Kansas City?
Oh, wow. So my name is Tom Collins. I'm the president and CFO of Dimensional Innovations. We're an experienced design firm, custom fabricator, and technology company based here in Kansas City, but we do work all over the country. I'm in Kansas City. I grew up here, actually. So I left for college, lived in Chicago, my kind of second home for a while, but I've been back in Kansas City for 20 years. And it's where I've chosen to raise my 3 kids and spend quite a bit of our time these days.
Hey, appreciate the introduction, Tom. And I feel like, you're one of those guys that don't need an introduction. So and thank you for doing it anyhow. Hey, as you tee up, kind of talk about Dimensional Innovations, and I'd be surprised if a lot of the listeners don't already know what your firm does, but you mentioned it as being an experiential firm. Could you just maybe kind of elaborate a little bit on what that means in your eyes?
Yeah. So, every day we're trying to design and make the world's best experiences. And I think that means a lot of things to a lot of different folks, but the simplest way to understand it for most people is to talk about the things we do out in the world of either sports. We do a lot of work in sports. We do a lot of work in museums, corporate environments, children's healthcare, anything where people are meant to, experience something that's unique. And we do a lot of work like in the world of sports, right? Whether it's locker rooms, both design, fabrication, locker installation, all of it for different sports teams, where they want to really send a message to a potential recruit or an athlete. We do the same thing in concourses at stadiums where we do brand activations, a lot of different technology games, signage, graphics, things that are meant to evoke some kind of emotion or experience when people are out in public. Then you kind of translate that into, well, every time I go into a museum, I'm doing that. Or if I'm going to an AMC theater or Cinemark or something like that. So the world continues to focus more and more on the value of experiences. And so that's really good for us because that's we love to live in that world.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love to talk about this. So I feel like your world and my world has collided more this year than ever before, right? At things with like the Barbie movie, the Taylor Swift, Beyonce concerts, like their experiences, right? That have these huge marketing budgets as well. From when you've been there, you've been there for a while. What has been like the most drastic changes that you've seen in this experience, and how much people are valuing and putting money into those experiences that are crossing some of those other lines, like the marketing lines and some of those types of
things? That's a great question. So I've been at DI over 8 years now, and there's kind of two pivotal points. First, when I first came into this world, it was really heavy into the world of traditional. I'll call it entertainment complexes. So theater heavy, unique experiences, sort of kind of like quasi museums, really. And then in sports, honestly, tremendous, huge part of the business. But what happened over the last 8 years, and it really accelerated in COVID and coming out of COVID, is the value that people place on experiences. We're seeing this huge shift of, where a dollar used to go to stuff, right? And when people sort of lost the ability to go out and engage with others in public and see and do different things, having that taken away from them for a little bit really enhanced the value that gets created when people do that. And now we're seeing this kind of next version of that, this explosion of that, where people are finding more value and they want it everywhere. So it's no longer just in a sports stadium, right? Or in an entertainment complex. It is, and it's in, hey, if I'm going to go into work, right? I want my office to be a better experience. I want it to be a place to engage and do something. Museums are moving away from a culture of just, old stuff under glass into something that's highly experiential, more technology driven, more educational. We're also seeing it in the value of experience in places like children's healthcare, where the value of distraction is not just one of entertainment, but it's one where it has therapeutic value. So it's really interesting to see what's happened across all these different industries and how they value experiences even more than they did, say, 3 years ago.
That's interesting.
It's amazing that to hear you talk about it, and would like to expand on a couple of things in a little bit, but you guys have kind of set the tone at Dimensional Innovations so much that a book has been written about some of the things that you've done, right? With local author Diana Kander and Go Big or Go Home, co-authored by Tucker Trotter, the founder of Dimensional Innovation, or the president and CEO of Dimensional Innovation. Sorry.
Yeah.
How can you tell me a little bit about how that came about? How you stuck out so much that somebody came to you to do a whole book around it?
Well, yeah. So first and foremost, in the sort of the value of relationships and friendships, I know how those kind of things mean. No friendship bracelets necessarily in these particular relationships, but
not yet.
Not yet.
Tucker's our CEO, was one of the founders of DI, my business partner, and sometime back we were starting to talk about, hey, there's a story to tell at DI. We do some really unique things, and there's a number of different stories that we could tell. And I've known Diana for a really long time. We go back 15 years or so, and kind of had the idea, like, let's brainstorm some ideas with Diana and start to talk about what story is valuable to other people, because there's so many, we see and do so many unique things. There's a lot of options there. And Diana came in and, clicked with Tucker almost immediately, and they started spending more time talking to each other about it. And it became a real simple idea to really build relationships with anyone, but real specifically clients and potential clients. It's establishing a big emotional connection and going out of your way to make sure you show that you understand them and you care about them, et cetera. And then from there, the book, Go Big or Go Home, was created.
Great read. For anyone who hasn't read it yet, I highly recommend it. Lots of great ideas and perspective from other companies as well. So
yeah, there's some really cool stories about different people from all different walks of life.
Yep.
And how there's so many things that those who are really engaged with their clients and who really care about other people, that you do naturally, that you may not even realize how important they are and how few people actually do them. That's, I think, the most fascinating takeaway for me.
So going back, sorry to Aaron, I'll let you talk.
Oh,
again.
You're good.
You talked about kind of the wheelhouse that used to be as far as customer base for Dimensional Innovations, the sports and theater, things like that. When did you all have the idea to start trying to incorporate that into other, let's say, industries that you're working with? What was there, something, or what was the inspiration to kind of expand and try it out in a different industry? And did it work from the start?
I'm thinking like of a handful of different stories to your last question about did it work from the start. Very few things work from the start, right? But we are not afraid of failing and failing forward either. But the one thing that DI has done a really great job of, and it's over time as our portfolio has grown, it's become a lot easier, is for people in one industry to see work we've done someplace else. And there's so much of it that translates that, we have a story of a Fortune 100 company whose CEO went into a locker room for a school that he was a donor at and said, "Hey, who did this? This is unbelievable." And it was us. And so 2 weeks later, we're in their offices talking to them about creating a unique experience for him to recruit and retain talent. So those things, those kind of experiences then create this idea of, well, if we could do it there, where else might it translate? And, we're really fortunate that we get to work with, so many different industries, and some really take off. Our work in museums and our work in children's healthcare right now, just to speak of two, are growing leaps and bounds. And I think it's because people are finally able to understand what I'll call the ROE, the return on experience, where they're willing to say, let's put some time, effort, and some financial backing behind this, because there's really value here for the constituents we want to serve.
ROE. I like that.
Love it.
I love it. Okay, I want to pull up these comments real quick, and then I have a question for you. Delvin says, watching on LinkedIn. Love to see you, Aaron. Hey. Also know Tom as well. Glad to see your face again.
What's up, Delvin?
Delvin, most important question. Have you met T Swift yet? Delvin works he works with all the Chiefs players. And then Fred said, watching on LinkedIn, love DI. We've worked with them on a number of projects, Raiders Torch being one of our favorites. Awesome.
That had to be conflicting, though. It had to be. I don't know. Please tell me you've done something at Gia at Arrowhead.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
We have done work in all four AFC West stadiums, including Arrowhead, right? So we're equal opportunity there. Same thing with Mizzou, KU, K-State. We love everybody. We're not going to let emotional fan bases. That's the other thing about us. We've got 225 plus people from all over the place, right? So so we've got fans of everything sprinkled in there. So
I love it. Delvin says he hasn't met Taylor Swift, and that is sad. And Elizabeth, hi Elizabeth. She says she loves ROE, dying to know more. Okay, I have a fun question. Hopefully this comes out right. Okay, so you're the CFO guy, right? You are the guy in charge of the finances. And it sounds like you got to work with quite a few dreamers to come up with some of the ideas and stuff. So what's the toughest part about the CFO guy, right? He's the guy that has to pull back the strings a lot of times. What's the toughest part about being the CFO in a room full of dreamers that maybe you didn't see in another business as the finance guy?
It is the toughest part is the emotional pain I endure by watching their faces when I walk into a room. Because they're like, oh, here's the dream killer. Great. Which is totally unfair. I think it's completely unfair. But that emotional pain is hard for me. So
Misplaced.
It is, but I think, again, one of the things that we try to do, and even like the question about ROE is, like, we want to dream big things, but our clients have real business problems to solve too.
Right.
So it's not just coming up with the craziest, most expensive out in left field stuff, right? I mean, we've got to make this stuff happen in the real world. And that's really our specialty. So in fact, I think everybody who comes to DI kind of understands that that's part of the gig, which is we are absolutely going to push the limits as far as we can. But at the same time, we also have to do this stuff on Earth. And so there is a little bit of balance of that. I mean, it all comes from Tucker. I've told people all the time, he is a creative at heart, but he's the most pragmatic creative I've ever been around. And so that sort of, is institutional in everything that we do from a culture perspective.
Interesting. So, one, and I think I cut you off, and hopefully I didn't miss it, but we talked about jumping off and some things not working at the beginning, but then seeing, kind of leading in or feeling into this. Do you remember what that inspiration was to try to take this to the other industries? Or
and for us it's right, so our mission statement is to liberate people from mediocre experiences. And if you really stop and think about that for a second, the world is full of mediocre experiences. I mean, there's so much stuff that we do and we tolerate that mediocre actually might be pretty good rating for some of the stuff we do. And so I think that what we really, when we're at our best, is we're taking that lens from the world and saying, okay, this experience is incredibly mediocre, even if it's something that we encounter from a customer experience standpoint, right? Where we see, we've talked to folks in the banking industry, about how do we change client experience, right? Like just those little nuggets of trying to look at it from the lens of how do you make this better? It doesn't always have to be this, this massive. It doesn't have to be a 11-story tall 3D printed torch, right? It's more subtle, and it is more about how people engage with the world. And so we have those conversations all the time with clients from literally all different walks of life, not just sports teams, Division I schools, and things like that.
So with that and kind of thinking through that, and I would say that maybe a lot of people are looking for data to drive decision making on things, and I would assume, and tell me if I'm wrong, there's not a lot of data that you can incorporate to speak to the science of why things have been effective with other projects, right? So on your business development team, have you seen some challenges to try to communicate the benefit or talk through that? What does that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I always come from the point, because if someone's coming to pitch me, I'm the guy who's always asking those questions. It's always the CFO, to Aaron's point. It's always the fun sponge, the CFO who's out there saying, give me some data on this.
I didn't call you a fun sponge.
You were thinking it though. I could see it. But it's a really, really, really good question. And in some cases, right, so the dialogue always begins with, well, let's go back to the objective first, right, which is, what are we trying to accomplish with what we're doing here? And then let's talk about how to measure that, because it can be a lot of different things, right? And Aaron, where our worlds cross over, right, so is in the brand activation space, right? And let's just use a hypothetical example where somebody wants to create an in-stadium experience, to drive 4 or 5 different brand metrics. That stuff's easier to measure now, especially through technology. You can talk about engagement, you can work on social platforms, you can measure brand list online. There's a number of different things you can do, right? And so those, in certain situations like that, it's not that difficult. One of the things that we've tried to institute everywhere we go is an element of technology that gives us a way to measure all kinds of different operating metrics, engagement metrics. And then if there's anything from a data perspective where we're asking people to come in and take away, right, then we have incredible data that can be used across a lot of different channels. So we've been really pushing that for the last 4 or 5 years or so, but it is difficult to measure. The question we always have to start with, though, is like, let's get specific. Let's talk about that business objective, and then we will find a way to measure it.
On those projects, I'm sure you get asked that a lot, like, what's your favorite project you guys have ever worked on? I want to take that one step further and say, what is a project that your team has worked on that when they brought it to you, you were like, there's no way we're going to pull that off. And then they pulled it off and you were just like, how, like, what? Like, we're insanely amazing. What project did you feel like that about?
Yeah. That's a hard question to answer. Because we're so fortunate to work on so many different challenges. And some of them are really special to me just because of either engagements that my kids have had with them, right? So like that's really cool for me to see. Others have been with sports teams or institutions that, I have deep ties to or I really care about. But the one that probably answers that question the most is the story of the torch. Because I'll just tell as quickly as I can. The design, it was a true design challenge where there was an incredible sketch, a really good idea. And then they brought very real world parameters, which was a certain timeline, certain budget, a lot of environmental constraints. You could go down the list of all the things it couldn't be and had to do. And they threw this out to literally the entire world. And everybody said effectively, this is crazy. Like there's no way to execute this under all these conditions. And a couple of folks in our innovation lab, which is a part of DI that we created 10 years ago, and it's a variety of different folks who are really kind of taking our toughest challenges to heart, had an idea and said we can get really close to the design intent and we can meet all these objectives if we 3D print it. And everyone in the room is like, that is the craziest idea I have ever heard of in my entire life. And literally, 48 hours later, we had a group of folks in a car headed to Dale, Indiana to check out one of the world's largest 3D printers. And, we vetted it over the course of a 30-day period, made the call, and, the rest is history. So those kinds of stories, like maybe not at that scale, that's the biggest story like that.
Yeah.
But we have those kind of challenges all day long. And it's super fun to work in an environment that, allows for that kind of freedom and also lets you interact with people with brains that big. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's cool.
Before we run out of time, one thing that I hear all the time talking to companies is challenges with workforce, challenges with labor, attracting talent, retaining talent, filling open positions. And I'm curious from your perspective, being, looking at that return on experience, how does the mindset of Dimensional Innovations, what does that do, or what do you see in your company, the engagement, all of those things from your own personal level? What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we try to create a unique work environment too, not just with the work we do, but also with the people that we bring on board. We have if you were to look at the different roles that we offer year in year, it looks like we're 20 different companies in one, because we have such diverse opinions and diverse backgrounds. And because of that, and I think for us, we also are very frank about the challenges of our work, which, they're all time bound because we all have timelines, their budgets. So there's problems. It's never super easy. But if you're really willing to jump into tough challenges and work with a variety of folks, and be really creative, then we tend to find some incredible people because we sort of say, here's what it is, right? It is, and it's not for everybody. We openly advertise that too. And so we've been really lucky because of that. And it's frankly, it's worked out. To Aaron's earlier question, not a lot of finance people would sign up for this job. I will say that. But it's been fun as hell for me. So
I really got you on that finance. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings at all. Will, you have another question? We got like 5 minutes left. I want you to ask your question. Be prepared today. I want you to ask them.
No, I love it. Well, and so going and just from my own, because as I'm thinking about things, and I'll say from the banking side of standpoint, there's a lot of job openings and a smaller pool to attract from. And you talk about some of the some of the challenges and the honesty to recruit, but when they get in the door, what does that retention look like? Are you seeing that it does make a difference? Is your turnover level less than maybe some industry peers, whatever that means in experiential?
Yeah, no, that's a
Or can you tell?
that's a great question, Will. I think all business leaders are trying to figure that out. How am I doing versus
Yep.
everybody else? In a world that's been really tough to attract and retain talent, particularly over the last few years. And I think with it's no secret that the United States is in a long-term labor shortage situation unless something changes dramatically for the next, call it, decade or two.
Yep.
And it's something that, every leader that I talk to is dealing with and having to prepare for. And we're no different in that regard. It's even with the incredible projects we have and that diversity of skill set and experience, we can't be everything to everyone. And I think that is a challenge. And what our attitude towards that has been, we're just going to stick with what we know. And that's why I come back to that idea of, if it doesn't work for somebody, then, I'm sorry, but that you just have to face that reality. I think the challenge that I hear from other leaders is everyone's trying to find either a silver bullet, some kind of magic formula, or something that's trying to be appealing for everybody. And I think that's just really, really difficult to do. It really is more about what's your lane, find your lane, stick to it, own it, know it really well, and just go from there.
No, great thought. Well, it's always great to talk to you. Enjoy it. Always learn something new when we do speak. And I was commenting to somebody earlier this week about dimensional innovations, because a lot of experiential data is starting to get tracked, in Wall Street Journal, business outlets, so on and so forth. And I really feel like the first time I heard about the experience being a part of everything you do is through dimensional innovation. So kudos on being ahead of the curve. And
thank you for doing that.
It's always great to see a good Kansas City company doing well.
Thank you very much for that. I really appreciate you guys having me on. Love hanging out with both of you. Like I said, particularly without Scott, it feels much more like it flows.
Yeah, we should really just cut him.
He's not going to see this, right? I just want to make
sure. No, it's not anywhere. I'm just keeping it on my own computer. No, we miss Scott. Scott, if you're watching, because I feel like you're going to go back and watch, we totally miss you.
I was kidding, Scott. If you're watching.
Well, you can buy us shots to make up for it, Scott. It's fine. No, seriously, thank you so much, Tom, for coming on. Will, you were a great co-host. You did a very good job.
I just try not to hold you up, Aaron. That's my whole goal. Every time we do this,
I'm just over here calling people fun sponges and stuff. So obviously, I'm total expert.
Your access to vocabulary is much different than mine. So you bring in something interesting. Fun sponge. I've never heard of it.
No, I'm gonna start using it. What I will tell you is that if you ever get to work on any of Taylor Swift's events and you don't call me, Tom, we're fighting. Okay.
I respect and appreciate that. I will definitely do that.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. Thank you so much to Big Blue Valley and Birds of McDonald's for sponsoring. And thank you so much, Will, for co-hosting with us. This is funny. We do miss Scott Havens, but good chance to the team. We tried our hardest. We tried our very hardest.
Yeah.
All right. We will see you same time, same place next week. Thank you guys so much. Bye-bye.